the challenge nobody expected. When Rush announced the 50-something tour, fans immediately focused on one question: how would Anika Nilles handle Neil Peart's legendary drum parts? But behind the scenes, there was another challenge that almost nobody was talking about. Alex Lifeson had to rethink the way his guitar sounded. For more than 4 decades, Alex's guitar tone evolved alongside Neil Peart's drumming. Every chord, every delay effect, every soaring lead was built around the feel and dynamics of the drummer sitting behind him. Then everything changed. Neil Peart was gone, and Rush faced the difficult task of bringing their music back to the stage without the man who helped define it. Rather than searching for a drummer who would simply imitate Neil, Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee chose acclaimed German drummer Anika Nilles. During rehearsals, they quickly realized she brought something very different to the music. Alex and Geddy later explained that Anika's individuality was one of the reasons she earned the job. They wanted someone with her own voice rather than a copy of Neil. Guitar World. That decision created an unexpected opportunity. Anika's playing is incredibly precise. Her background in fusion and modern progressive music gives her a level of clarity and articulation that stands out immediately. Every ghost note, accent, and cymbal hit lands with remarkable definition. What fans didn't know was that Alex had already spent years experimenting with new sounds through his post-Rush projects. Working with Envy of None pushed him toward more atmospheric textures, layered effects, and modern approaches to guitar tone. Instead of simply recreating the past, he had learned how to build sounds that breathe differently within a mix. Those lessons would soon become crucial. As rehearsals continued, Alex began making adjustments that most audience members would never notice. Yet these changes would become one of the hidden reasons the 50-something tour sounded fresh rather than nostalgic. The goal wasn't to sound less like Rush. The goal was to make Rush sound alive again. And the first major step involved completely rethinking the technology at the center of his guitar rig. In the next part, we'll look at the surprising piece of gear Alex brought into the 50-something tour setup and why it may have changed everything. The technology behind the transformation. As rehearsals for the 50-something tour intensified, Alex Lifeson faced a decision that many veteran guitarists struggle with. Should he stay completely loyal to the equipment that helped build Rush's legendary sound? Or should he embrace newer technology that could better fit the band's new musical chemistry? For years, Alex had been known for combining traditional amplifiers with advanced effects processing. Throughout Rush's later tours, he relied heavily on sophisticated rack systems that allowed him to switch between countless sounds instantly. But the arrival of Anika Nilles created a new challenge. Her drumming style delivered extraordinary precision. Every rhythmic detail was clear. Every accent could be heard. Every dynamic change had a purpose. That meant Alex's guitar tone needed to become equally focused. According to interviews over recent years, Lifeson has increasingly embraced digital modeling technology alongside traditional gear. Modern processors gave him the ability to shape frequencies with incredible accuracy while preserving the warmth and character fans expected from his playing. Why was that important? Because guitar tone isn't just about sounding good by itself. It's about fitting into a band. Think of a live mix like a puzzle. Every instrument occupies its own space. If two musicians compete for the same frequencies, the overall sound becomes muddy. If each instrument has its own place, everything becomes clearer and more powerful. During early rehearsals, Alex reportedly spent significant time refining sounds that would leave more room for Anika's intricate drum work while still delivering the massive guitar presence Rush fans love. In many ways, he wasn't abandoning his classic sound. He was updating it. And that update was beginning to pay off. As the band played through classic Rush material, something unexpected happened. Instead of feeling like older songs performed by a new lineup, the music started developing a different energy. The interaction between Alex's refined guitar tones and Anika's modern drumming created details that even longtime fans had never heard before. But the biggest adjustment wasn't the equipment. It was the way Alex approached playing itself. And that change may have been the most difficult part of the entire transition. In the next batch, we'll explore how Alex subtly altered his playing style to lock in with Anika's unique rhythmic approach. The playing style shift nobody saw coming. Most fans assume a guitar rig is all about equipment. The amps, the pedals, the processors, the speakers. But the truth is that the biggest part of any guitarist's sound comes from something much simpler: their hands. As Alex Lifeson continued rehearsing with Anika Nilles, he discovered that changing gear alone wasn't enough. To fully connect with a new rhythm section, he had to rethink aspects of his playing style that had been shaped over decades. For more than 40 years, Alex and Neil Peart developed an almost telepathic musical relationship. Neil's drumming was powerful, dramatic, and highly orchestrated. His fills often swept across the drum kit like musical statements of their own. Alex naturally learned how to respond to those moments. Sometimes he would leave space. Sometimes he would push harder. Sometimes he would ride the energy of a drum fill into a huge chord change. It became second nature. Then Anika entered the picture. While she is certainly capable of explosive power, her approach often emphasizes precision, groove, and intricate rhythmic detail. Her fusion background encourages a different kind of interaction between drums and guitar. Instead of simply riding on top of the drums, Alex found himself engaging in a more detailed musical conversation. Small rhythmic accents suddenly became more important. Alex began focusing even more on articulation. Notes needed to be cleaner. Chord attacks needed to be more intentional. Dynamic changes had to work with Anika's highly detailed rhythms instead of overwhelming them. Ironically, these adjustments often made the music feel bigger. When every instrument has its own space, listeners hear more detail, and more detail creates more impact. By this point, Alex's guitar tone and playing style were evolving together. The equipment changes supported the musical changes. The musical changes supported the chemistry developing within the band. Everything was moving in the right direction. But there was still one major obstacle. Some of Rush's most beloved songs were built around enormous walls of sound. Could Alex preserve those iconic moments while still making room for Anika's modern drumming style? The answer required one final adjustment, an adjustment that would reshape the sound of the entire live show. And that's where things became truly fascinating. In the next batch, we'll reveal how Alex redesigned the live mix itself to create the perfect balance between Rush's past and its future. Redesigning the sound of the entire show, by the time rehearsals reached their final stages, Alex Lifeson had already made major adjustments to his gear and playing style. But another challenge remained. How do you perform songs that fans have heard for decades while making them sound fresh enough to justify bringing them back to the stage? For Alex, the answer wasn't simply playing louder. It was creating more space. That may sound strange for a guitarist known for huge progressive rock anthems, but space became one of the most important ingredients in the 50-something tour sound. Throughout Rush's career, Alex often layered multiple effects together. Chorus, delay, reverb, and various modulation effects helped create the massive soundscapes heard on albums and tours. Those textures became part of the band's identity. However, modern live sound systems reveal every detail with incredible clarity. What worked perfectly in one era doesn't always translate the same way decades later. As Alex and the production team listened to rehearsal recordings, they focused on something many fans never think about: separation. Could listeners clearly hear the guitar? Could they clearly hear the bass? Could they clearly hear every detail of Anika's drumming? The answer needed to be yes. Instead of stacking sounds on top of each other, the band worked toward a mix where each instrument occupied its own space. Alex's guitar remained powerful, but it no longer needed to fill every corner of the sonic landscape. And here's what makes the story even more interesting. The changes weren't designed to replace classic Rush. They were designed to protect it. Alex understood that fans were coming to hear songs they loved. The iconic riffs still needed their power. The legendary solos still needed their emotion. The signature moments still needed to feel enormous. The challenge was delivering those moments while allowing a new drummer's personality to exist within them. Little by little, the balance started to emerge. The old spirit remained intact, but a new energy was beginning to surface. As opening night approached, Alex realized something unexpected. The biggest lesson of the entire process wasn't about technology. It wasn't about amplifiers, and it wasn't about effects. It was about trust. Trusting a new musician enough to let the music evolve. And that realization would ultimately define the success of the 50-something tour. In the next batch, we'll explore the reaction from fans and musicians as they began hearing the results of Alex's remarkable transformation. The reactions begin. When the first performances of the 50-something tour finally arrived, fans weren't just listening to the songs. They were listening for differences. Every Rush fan knew this was a unique moment. For decades, the band's chemistry had been built around the partnership of Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, and Neil Peart. Any change to that formula was guaranteed to attract attention. And attention is exactly what it received. Some fans immediately focused on Anika Nilles. Others paid close attention to Geddy's vocals and bass work. But many musicians watching the performances noticed something else. Alex Lifeson's guitar sounded different, not radically different. Not enough to stop sounding like Alex Lifeson, but different enough to create a new feel throughout the music. The guitar tones often appeared more open and focused. Individual notes could be heard more clearly. Complex passages felt less crowded. The interaction between guitar and drums seemed tighter and more defined. For casual listeners, it simply sounded good. For experienced musicians, it revealed how much work had happened behind the scenes. The most impressive part was that many fans couldn't immediately identify what had changed. And that's usually the sign of a successful adjustment. When major changes become obvious, audiences can become distracted. But when the changes serve the music, listeners often experience the results without consciously noticing the process. They allowed Anika's voice as a drummer to be heard while preserving the identity of the songs. And perhaps most importantly, they demonstrated something many legendary artists struggle to accept. Growth doesn't end when a career reaches legendary status. Alex Lifeson could have simply recreated every detail from past tours. Many fans would have applauded the nostalgia. Instead, he chose a harder path. He adapted. He listened. He evolved. That willingness to change became one of the hidden reasons the 50-something tour worked as well as it did. But the story doesn't end with gear, technique, or live production. Because in the end, Alex's transformation revealed something much deeper about Rush itself. And that's what we'll explore in the final batch. The real reason Alex changed everything. At first glance, the story of Alex Lifeson's 50-something tour transformation sounds like a technical discussion. New equipment, new settings, new tones, new approaches to live performance. The decision to work with Anika Nilles represented that philosophy from the very beginning. Rather than searching for someone who would simply imitate Neil Peart note for note, Alex and Geddy Lee embraced a musician with her own identity, creativity, and voice. That choice required adjustments from everyone involved. Anika adapted to one of the most demanding catalogs in rock history. Geddy adapted to a new rhythmic partner. And Alex adapted his guitar sound, playing style, and overall approach to make the chemistry work. The remarkable part is that most fans never saw those changes happening. They simply heard the result. A band that still sounded powerful. A band that still sounded emotional. A band that still sounded unmistakably like Rush. Yet beneath the surface, countless details had evolved. The guitar occupied space differently. The arrangements breathed differently. The interaction between musicians felt different. And that's exactly why the performances connected with audiences. The goal was never to recreate the past perfectly. The goal was to carry its spirit forward. In many ways, Alex's willingness to reshape his sound reflected something Rush had always believed throughout its career. From progressive rock epics to synthesizer-driven experiments and later guitar-focused albums, the band constantly evolved rather than standing still. The 50-something tour simply continued that tradition. Perhaps that's the biggest lesson from this story. Sometimes honoring a legacy doesn't mean preserving every detail exactly as it was. Sometimes it means having the courage to change. Alex Lifeson understood that. By refining his guitar rig, adjusting his playing style, and creating room for Anika Nilles' modern precision, he helped build a version of Rush that respected the past while embracing the future. And in the end, that may be the most Rush-like decision he could have made. Because the band's greatest strength was never a specific amplifier, a specific drum kit, or a specific effect pedal. It was the willingness to evolve. And on the 50-something tour, Alex Lifeson proved that spirit is still very much alive. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments. Did Alex make the right decision by adapting his sound for Anika Nilles, or would you have preferred a more traditional Rush approach?